Today, we're diving into something pretty fascinating. We're asking whether the secret to protecting one of our most important organs, the liver, might not be in some high-tech lab, but actually in our diet. We're going to look at two powerful compounds that are showing some seriously incredible promise.
I mean, think about that for a second. What if the key to fighting a really common, really serious health problem isn't in a pharmacy, but it's hiding in plain sight, right there in your kitchen?
And the stakes here are incredibly high. We're talking about a disease that affects millions and millions of people all over the world. But here's the thing, there are currently no approved medical treatments for it. So that's pushed researchers to look down a completely different path, what we eat.
So what are we talking about here? It's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD for short. And it's pretty much what it sounds like, an unhealthy buildup of fat inside the liver. The really alarming part? It affects about a quarter of everyone on the planet, and it's often called a silent condition because you might not feel a thing until things get really serious.
Okay, so let's start with our first big clue. And it comes from a massive study that points towards a very, very popular supplement, Omega-3. Look, if you want to get solid answers in science, you need a ton of data. So researchers went to the UK Biobank, which is this incredible resource with health info on 500,000 people. And they were super careful. They filtered out anyone who already had liver problems to get a clean, healthy group of people to study from the get-go.
And after all that careful filtering, they were left with this, an absolutely incredible cohort of over 400,000 people.
So then, they followed this massive group for over a decade. And the core of the study was simple. Compare the people who regularly took omega-3 supplements with the people who didn't, all while making sure to account for other things like their overall diet and exercise habits.
So, after all of that work, all those people, all those years, what did they find? What was the actual link between omega-3s and keeping your liver healthy long-term?
The result came down to this one striking figure, 28.4%.
So what is that number? That is the drop in risk for developing liver disease for people who regularly took omega-3 supplements, a nearly 30% difference. In a study of this size, that is a huge signal.
And when they drilled down into the details, that connection held up across several different types of liver disease. Taking omega-3 was linked to a lower risk of not just fatty liver, but also alcoholic liver disease and even the absolute worst-case scenario, liver failure. Okay, so the big picture data shows a connection. But how? Like what's actually happening on a smaller scale? For that, we need to zoom in, way in, from a huge population study down to a single molecule.
You know, we hear about the benefits of the Mediterranean diet all the time, right? Well, scientists wanted to figure out why it seems to be so good for our livers. And that led them to investigate some of its star components, including this really powerful antioxidant called lycopene. You know, it's the stuff that gives tomatoes that amazing red color.
So how does this little molecule actually get the job done inside a cell? Well, when a liver cell gets overloaded with fatty acids, it can actually trigger a chain reaction to create even more fat. What lycopene seems to do is jump in and block a key signal that tells the cell to start making new fat. It basically pumps the brakes on the whole fat production line.
So think of it like this. On one side, you've got a totally stressed out liver cell. It's drowning in fat and it's creating all these damaging molecules. But when you bring lycopene into the picture, the whole story changes. It helps slow down fat production, and it acts like a bodyguard, neutralizing all those harmful molecules. It's a real 1-2 punch of protection.
All right, now this is where the story gets really fascinating, because that big omega-3 study didn't just look at diet. It also looked at the participants' DNA, and it revealed this amazing interaction between what we eat and our own genetic blueprint.
What the researchers found was that this protective link with omega-3, well, it wasn't the same for everybody. For people who happened to carry certain genetic variants related to liver health, the effect was actually magnified. It was supercharged. Okay, so take this gene called PNPLA3. Certain versions of it basically put you at a higher genetic risk of developing fatty liver disease. But here's the kicker. In this study, for people who carried that higher risk gene, taking omega-3 was associated with almost neutralizing some of that inherited risk. And then you've got the flip side. Some people have a gene variant that's naturally protective against liver disease. It's like they won the genetic lottery. Well, for these lucky folks, taking omega-3 seemed to act like a booster shot,
adding another layer of protection right on top of what their genes already gave them. Okay, so we've looked at a huge study, we've gone down to the molecular level, we've even touched on genetics, but what's the big takeaway here? Let's put all of this science into perspective.
Now, this is super important to understand. These studies show a powerful link, an association. They don't prove that omega-3 directly causes a lower risk. It's also totally possible that people who choose to take supplements just happen to have other healthy habits. And that's exactly why the next step has to be rigorous clinical trials.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The scientists who actually ran the study said it themselves. This is a direct quote from their conclusion, and they make it crystal clear. Before this can become any kind of medical recommendation, it has to be proven in clinical trials.
So here's the bottom line. No, you can't go to your doctor and get a prescription for this, at least not yet. But what this research gives us is really powerful evidence for a principle we've kind of always known, right? That the choices we make about our food can have a real, measurable, and maybe even profound impact on our long-term health. And all this leaves us with a truly exciting question for the future. As we learn more and more about how our diet and our genes interact, are we heading into a new era of personalized nutrition? An era where what we eat could be tailored specifically to our unique DNA? It seems the clues might just be in our kitchens and in our code.